In the early morning of August 29, 2012, Jose Aguirre, an undocumented immigrant from Mexico, set out for work on what would become the longest journey of his life that would not only change his life forever, but that of every single undocumented immigrant in California thereafter. As Jose was entering into his workplace in his Nissan Xterra, it suddenly accelerated from 15 to 40 miles an hour. And while he tried desperately to slow his vehicle down, he could not because the accelerator pedal had become trapped under the parking brake bracket. As he desperately plied his brakes to no avail, the vehicle broadsided a concrete ramp, vaulted into the air, and then submarined under a parked big rig trailer, fracturing his cervical spine and rendering him a C6 quadriplegic. And for the next 9 years, myself, Bob Bale, Noemi Esparza worked tirelessly for him to find an answer when everyone else told us that it was futile to try. One of the obvious hurdles that we addressed and had to encounter was the fact that Jose was undocumented.
When I heard about Nissan coming after our client to find out his immigration status, I approached the AOC and said, we got to do something about this. They allowed me to meet with Lorena Gonzalez, who carried our bill to the legislature. Immigration status is no longer admissible or discoverable in a civil action. And the defendant, who had absolutely planned on exploiting Mr. Aguirre's immigrant status, was completely barred from even mentioning it, let alone attacking it.
The size of this verdict that was determined by a trial judge was so significant that Nissan battled us for nearly 3 years on appeal, trying to get it set aside. We believe that this case has made Nissan owners all over the world safer.
Amazon, the Titan, the world's largest online retailer, ships hundreds of millions of boxes to eager consumers every day. And they had never lost a case seeking to hold them strictly liable for the products they sell until now. So Angela Boucher needed a new replacement laptop battery for her laptop. She went to Google and entered laptop replacement battery, and immediately listings from Amazon came up, and she purchased a replacement battery. 3 years later, when she was using that laptop sitting in her bed, the laptop battery exploded on her lap, causing her third-degree burns all over her body. Both the manufacturer of the battery and the third-party seller of the battery were located in China and were unreachable. So the only defendant left was Amazon, the seller of the battery, the retailer. After we filed this case, Amazon pointed us to about 10 decisions from around the country holding that it could not be strictly liable for third-party products sold on its site because by definition it wasn't a seller. And so Amazon won summary judgment in our case on the strength of those cases. So we knew that this was going to be an important and hard-fought appeal. And so because of that, we pulled out all the stops. We developed a compelling public policy argument that it was unfair that Amazon could take advantage of all of the benefits of being a retailer. They make billions of dollars a day and yet bear none of the burdens. Fortunately for us, the Court of Appeal agreed with us, and Justice Guerrero, now of the California Supreme Court, wrote a unanimous opinion holding that Amazon was an integral part of placing these products in the stream of commerce and that they are liable. Not only has Amazon changed its business practices, every consumer in California now has the protection of strict product liability law for products which Amazon sells directly from its warehouses.
On a dark and snowy night in rural Washington, 4 shots rang out from a .40 caliber handgun, piercing the windshield and injuring 2 men severely.
In the middle of the pandemic, we get a call from an attorney out of Washington. The trial is set in 4 days.
There were these 2 good old boys out driving around in a 4-wheel UTV through a downtown in the snow, blowing through stop signs, and then the set of lights came on that turned out to be a cop. We distilled the case down to 3 basic pieces of evidence: a grainy home video, footprints in the snow, and their own experts' depiction of what happened. The police officer, furious with being evaded, drove up along a side street, came into a place where he parked his car behind a bush, and as the UTV approached, he moved forward, turned on his spotlight, blinded them, got out of the car with his gun drawn, and ran 13 steps in their direction, placing himself right in front of the car, and then shooting them, claiming that they were going to run him over. It came down to 6 jurors who decided that someone's civil rights were worth protecting, and that a cop can't shoot because he feels like he's been disrespected. This was the largest verdict in Washington state history for a non-fatal shooting. The pandemic was really frustrating. I felt that we were silenced, that we were held back, that we couldn't do what it is that makes us unique. So being able to get back into a courtroom, even with only 4 days, was something that made me proud and inspired to know that even after all of this delay, the justice still prevails.
When I saw this scene playing out on TV, I dropped to my knees and I started crying. This is a moment I will never forget. In late 2017, New York Times journalists Megan Twohey and Jodi Kantor were in the process of publishing exposés about Harvey Weinstein. As part of that process, my first client, Sandy Rehal, reached out to me about what Harvey did to her. And that included many dozens of incidents of sexual battery. We filed the lawsuit in January 2018. And by March 2018, the Weinstein Company filed for bankruptcy. It took almost 2 years, but we were ultimately able to put together a settlement on behalf of 55 legitimate claims by women. One of the unexpected but truly amazing results of the courage that these women showed in coming forward was the galvanizing of women across all kinds of business sectors and across the world. The Me Too movement blew up worldwide. It is one of the great ironies of my life that I would not be here today if I hadn't been victimized by a coach when I was a sophomore in high school. When do we see the stories about the monsters creating monster hunters? Because that's what the monster in my life did. For all of us women who have been screaming time's up for decades, this is our moment.
No, I won't keep quiet.
It started with the smell of rotten eggs. Shortly before Halloween in 2015, in the family-oriented community of Porter Ranch, the smell suddenly caused headaches, nosebleeds, nausea, rashes, and vomiting for a 5-mile radius lasting 116 days. This forced over 20,000 residents to relocate, and the closure of the local public schools and businesses. It was later described in secret internal Southern California gas documents as a mini Chernobyl.
From the beginning, a team of trial lawyers went to battle against SoCalGas and Sempra Energy in a true David and Goliath litigation story. 585 days of depositions, including 5 former CEOs of Southern California Gas Company and the chairman and former CEO of Sempra Energy.
Over 135 law firms representing over 36,210 people in single litigation, over 6,000 minors.
The court eventually ordered defendants to produce nearly 180,000 documents that were wrongfully withheld. The court found defendants had engaged in abusive and bad faith discovery tactics and sanctioned them for nearly $6 million. These documents were the best documents in the case, showing that defendants had complete disregard for the health and safety of our clients.
So this was the largest natural gas settlement in history.
It took a lot of work and a lot of grit and a lot of passion and perseverance, but that's what each and every one of us do every day.
Jackie Aguirre was a 26-year-old promising attorney with a bright future. It all went away with a mistake that never should have happened. It was the summer of 2018 when Jackie Aguirre, having what she thought was a toothache, was ultimately diagnosed by a neurologist as being an arteriovenous malfunction, which is a cluster of veins in the brain, which is literally a time bomb. If it bleeds, totally fatal. The doctors who initially diagnosed it refused to do the surgery because the location was so dangerous. Jackie and her family were warned that the surgery will more likely than not result in residual brain injuries, yet they decided they had to do it. But during that surgery, the worst thing that could have happened, and Jackie had a massive brain bleed. Jackie lapsed into a coma. And over the next several weeks, she improved to where she had come out of her coma. She was able to actually stand up with assistance. Everything started looking promising. On October 1st, while the doctor had planned on taking her out of the ICU and removing her from heparin, and what happened was while she was still on a heparin drip, the nurse that gave Jackie a dose of apixaban while she was still on a heparin drip. Within 3 hours, Jackie had another massive bleed. It turned out that at mediation, we reached an 8-figure settlement that was going to help Jackie throughout the rest of her life. It's an incredible case to handle. It was the case of a lifetime. Jackie's dad was a great lawyer, a great guy, and a friend. And to be able to help his daughter was a treasure. And it's something that careers are made of. I believe I was put on this earth to be a lawyer. I just am so proud to have been a part of Jackie Yeager's life. I think Kurt Yeager would be really proud.